Okay, I should be recording. I am sharing my screen, so hopefully there are no other issues that occur and everything works fine. All right, so we're in week 6. Week 6 is irrational functions, and I know that everybody hates rational expressions because that's the fractions, that's the stuff that everybody has struggled with, but this week's not so bad. I know you're probably going to think I'm crazy. It's really not so bad. It's actually quite simple. So we have only 2 sections of reading this week. We've got 4.1, which is rational functions and asymptotes, and then 4.2, which is graphs of rational functions. Everything else in chapter 4 is covered in pre-calculus, which is MA141. So we don't need to cover that here. So we're just covering 2 sections, which gives you a lot of time to catch up if you're, or if you have things that you want to resubmit or you're a little behind, you have time to do that this week. So because we only got 2 sections, we are using a lot of stuff from previous weeks. You're going to be solving linear and quadratic equations. You're going to be solving polynomial equations. You're going to be factoring. You're going to be graphing. You're going to be working with functions and transformations. Just like every other week, factoring is popping up. But this is probably, the factoring that you do is very minor this week. And most of the stuff will end up, you're going to be canceling things out. And so it's really not so bad. And I'm going to be doing a live session tomorrow night at 6 p.m., I believe is what I have it set. And I'm going to be going through both sections 4.1 and 4.2 and doing everything you need to do for the assignment. So I'll be going through everything tomorrow. And that should be enough. That should be everything you need to know. And then you can do the discussion and you should be good to go. So we've got the week 6 discussion, the ungraded practice assignment, the assignment, and then the quiz. So let's talk about the discussion. This is another discussion where you have to show your work. This one is actually usually easier for people than the one we just did with the quadratic. So basically, this is another one where you're researching real data and then you're using it and using algebra to kind of use it in the real world. So basically, everybody has a cell phone these days. I need to buy one in a couple, well, I don't need to buy one. I want to buy one in a couple months when my 2 years is up. But when you go and you buy a cell phone, and often they're like, oh yeah, you can put the cell phone on your plan, and the cell phone is like $30 per month. And so that brings you're paying for the cell phone service plus the phone, and so your bill is now going to be this much a month. I don't know if you've ever wondered how they figured that out, or if you've ever wondered if they are overcharging you. But you can find out because we are going to be doing the math that they do, so you can determine how they figure out how much the phone is per month and how they figure out what your bill is going to be every month. And so first you're going to be doing some research. So you're going to figure out, let's say you want to buy a phone. Even if you don't want to buy a phone, just pretend you want to buy a phone, and look up how much it costs flat out, total price. Most phones are in the $1,000 range. If you have taken any government classes with Jonathan Dolan, he just got a phone. He got one for $175, which was super cheap. So you can get phones that are super cheap or super expensive. But find a phone that you like, find out how much it costs. And then you also need to figure out how much your cell service is a month. Not the part with the phone, not like what your bill is, because your bill usually includes insurance and it includes a whole extra stuff. The base fee thing. And if you're not sure what it is, usually you can look at your bill. Your bill will break it down. That's how I figured out. My Verizon bill will tell me how much the service is, and then it splits it up like this much is taxes, this is insurance, all that. So you want to know how much the actual cost of service is. For me, I think it's $30 a month for unlimited talk and text. And then I pay an extra $20 a month for 2 gigs of data, I believe. So that would be $50 total for me for my cell service. The rest is taxes and the cost of my current phone. So you need to find out how much that costs. So not your bill cost, because that includes extra stuff. But you can go to a bill, and if you don't have access to a cell phone bill, then you can pretend, you can just Google, go to Verizon or AT&T and figure out what their latest things are. So Elsie, yes, iPhone 11, that's the big thing. See, yeah, I'm a Samsung gal, so I'm going to be looking up the latest Samsung, but I know a lot of people are iPhone people, so they'll be looking up that. So once you figure out how much the phone is that you want to buy, or you hypothetically want to buy, and how much your service actually is for the actual cell phone part, then you're going to put this into an equation. So you have the equation here. The device cost, that's how much the phone costs altogether. So I'm just going to make up a number, $1,200. I don't know how much. That might be the iPhone 11. I know that's usually over $1,000. So let's say that's how much the phone costs, and then I said that my bill was $30 for the talk and text plus $20, so that's $50 a month. So the top of my fraction would be 1,200 plus 50m over m. So that is my equation, 1,200 plus 50m over m, and m just stands for the number of months. So you're writing this equation, and then you need to, once you have that equation, you need to find the asymptote. So that's something you will learn about in 4.1 and 4.2, or my live session tomorrow. Once you figure out what the asymptotes are, and it's really not, it's a weird term, I'm sure you've never heard of it before. It's actually pretty simple to find. Once you do that, then you need to figure out how much your bill would be if you have the phone for 2 years. So 2 years is 24 months. So you plug in m equals 24. So you plug that into your equation, and then you do all the math, and that will tell you how much your monthly bill would be. Once and that's assuming that you are having the phone paid off month by month. That's what this formula is doing. It's saying, here's how much you pay for your service, plus this is the monthly cost of the phone if you're not paying it up front. If you pay it off up front, then you'd have to then this equation doesn't work. But most people, or some places, don't even offer that, and you have to pay off your phone month by month, and they have like with a 24-month contract. Some places have a 30-month contract. And so it's just added onto your bill as an extra fee. So that's what this is finding. This would be, okay, this would be your total, your new bill with this phone, basically. So that way, then you can say, okay, is this something I can afford? Does this match what the store is telling me it's going to cost me? So you can actually double check all the math. And so the reflection part is, first, what would be the minimum possible monthly cost? What is the lowest possible number you can get this to? And so that involves some thinking about the asymptotes, and maybe thinking about like what numbers you can change and what would make the biggest difference in that cost. Just reflect. Now that you've done this calculation, does that make you think differently about how much you spend on a phone? Does that make you think differently about how you buy phones, that sort of thing? I've added an extra question here that's not listed in the prompt, but I think is a good one, is how could you use this equation then to budget? Like, could you use this equation to say, I can only afford this much a month, and figure out how much you can afford on a phone? What is the maximum amount of money you can spend on a phone? That sort of thing. So there's a lot of reflection going on about this, and another reflection is, does this match what the phone company says it does? At the end of the week, I'm actually going to do, I always go through this with, I have Verizon, so I go through this with my phone data, and I double check. I don't know about other people's company, but when I do the math with Verizon, it matches. So Verizon, I know, is not overcharging me. So that was a comfort when I did this. I made sure I wasn't getting overcharged. But I will be showing my own math, with the latest Galaxy, my own phone bill, and walking through it. And I actually have used this equation to decide if I'm going to upgrade early. Is it worth it? Am I going to save money if I upgrade early, depending on the cost of the phone? So I used this and decided it's not going to save me money if I upgrade early, so I'm not going to upgrade early. But maybe for some people it does, depending on what the new phone is that you're getting. So that's what the discussion prompt is. So you need to do some math. The amount of math you're doing is not as much as last week, and there's a lot more reflection. So this one shouldn't be too bad. And if you watch tomorrow's live session, that should give you a good idea of what you need to do. So assignments. Your ungraded practice assignment is the end of chapter review exercises from chapter 4, just 1 through 31 odds, because the rest is on stuff that we are not going to cover. And then your assignment, this is probably one of the easiest assignments to do. Most people get most of the problems right on this. So you have 10 problems, you know, show all work. Some of them don't require any work and you can just write down the answer. So if there's no work required, that's fine to just write down the answer. You know, I do allow resubmission, so go ahead and do that if you want. For your assignment, you know, try to have it as a single file, scanned in order. I found out that Cam Scanner, which I used to be recommending, some of the updates somehow got hijacked with malware. So I'm now recommending Genius Scan. So because Google Play removed it completely from the, I had it on my phone and I got a note from Google Play and they said, oh, we found this has malware on it, so we're removing it from the store. So I was like, oh, that's not good. The older versions of the app did not have this stuff and were completely fine, but something happened and it got hijacked. So Genius Scan is safe as far as I know. So that's a different one that you can use to scan, to take pictures and turn it into a PDF. Just make sure everything can be read, not blurry, that sort of thing. So for your quiz, okay, so 10 questions, 1 hour, you know, the standard things that we've been going through week after week, but I think everybody's got an idea now how these things work. Do make sure you turn in your work. I'm noticing some people are doing the quiz and are not turning in your work at the end of the term. If you have not turned in your work for the quiz, you could have your score cut in half because there's no work to back up your answers. So do make sure you turn those in. And if you threw out your work, let me know and I can tell you how to see the questions again so that you can rework through the work. I just was going through some of the previous quizzes and a lot of people were earning like 5-10 extra points, which is like 10% of your grade, like an extra 10% back on your quiz. So that's huge. Some people even earn 20% back on their quiz based off of the work that they showed on the drop boxes. So definitely do that. I don't want you guys to miss out on having, you know, getting more points because you haven't turned in your work on the quiz. So the quiz this week is covering week 5 stuff. So you're going to be having to find zeros. I know a lot of people are struggling with finding the zeros and trying to factor because you basically have to do a lot of guessing and checking. If that is too difficult for you, you can always graph it in Desmos and then use the graph to help you figure out what numbers to try to use when you use synthetic division. You need a graph. You're going to be writing equations of polynomials. So that I accidentally, the equations of polynomials, I did one of those in, I think it was, oh shoot, was it the synthetic division one or, I can't remember, but it was in one of my live sessions. I can't remember which one, but I did do an example like that. Writing a variation model. So I didn't do any session on variation. There's just the last section, 3.5. You just have one question on that. So that's pretty straightforward. I am going to provide some practice problems or links to that on the next slide. Synthetic division. So you're going to have to be able to do synthetic division, which is 3.3. Analyzing polynomials. So figuring out what the end behavior is, the degree of the polynomial, the turning points, I talked about that in the 3.4 video. So if you need refreshers on those things, you can watch those videos, or you can, you know, try to find some more examples on Google to see if people explain things differently. I know a lot of people also got confused with Descartes' rule of signs. And there are other videos out there that you can watch that might explain it differently. So don't be afraid to use those other resources to help you study for this quiz. Additionally, definitely review your week 5 assignment to know how to do it. Make sure you can do that same sort of step with a different equation or different function. And then the variation that I mentioned that I didn't do a video on, I do have 4 links here to practice problems on variation from IXL. I realized that last week I forgot to put this slide in there with some practice problems for you, but I made sure to do it for this week. So if variation is something, those are the word problems that you're not too sure on, that was problem 2 on the assignment. There's tons of practice problems there. And so the suggested schedule for putting all of this together. Well, let me zoom in. So the discussion prompt, read through that, or today basically, and when I say read and reply to posts, you can read and reply to posts from last week. You don't have to, once the week is over, doesn't mean that the discussion's closed. You can still reply. So because there's only 2 sections, you can be done with those sections by Friday, which means you can do your discussion post over the weekend. And so you should have plenty of time to get it in by Sunday. And then those are the review exercises that work with each thing. And then you can work on your week 6 assignment and turn it in by Sunday, which leaves you Monday and Tuesday to start catching up on things. Or if you're like, well, I have all this extra space Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday where I'm not doing so much because I did it all Thursday and Friday, you can start catching up on things, resubmitting assignments, submitting your drop boxes that you haven't submitted, that sort of thing. So this is a good week for catching up. It's sort of a lull week, and it just so happened to work out that way with the sections, because it was like otherwise we're going to have to jump to a different chapter and then the stuff wouldn't connect at all, and I don't like to do that if the things don't really connect in any way. So that is it. That's what you need to know for the week. Definitely recommend attending the live session tomorrow, which I'm crossing my fingers that all of my Blackboard Collaborate issues are fixed by then. If not, I'll have to figure out a different, or there will be options if it doesn't work, if we can't get sound or anything like that. I'll definitely work through that. But yeah, that is tomorrow at 6 p.m. Central Time. And of course, if you can't attend, it will be recorded. So, are there any questions for me? Okay.